Good afternoon, everybody, or I guess good morning if you're on the West Coast here today, or wherever you're joining us here today. Good to see you all. I appreciate you all joining here today. Welcome to the early tea time live stream presented by Fantasy Points. As always, thanks for joining today. We're at a much different time slot than we are in our typical, Monday night time slot, I guess I'll say again. I hope you all had a great 4th of July weekend. Hope you started off your week on a good note as well. It's a shorter week this week, but yeah, hope you're all in good spirits after that long weekend. We at Fantasy Points have a bunch of free content this week. All of our live streams will be free all week long. Matt had a really great DFS show this morning. He built multiple lineups. I think he got up to about 10 lineups. Talked about some of his favorite plays in each range. I know he had my boy Victor Hovland in a bunch of those lineups, so I do like to see that quite a bit. You can find that on Twitter and on the Fantasy Points YouTube page. Be sure to subscribe there. Dom and Sam have their betting show tonight that will run tonight. That's more of the betting side. They'll talk about outrights, any other placement bets, that kind of stuff that they like. So again, a lot of good free content this week from Fantasy Points. Again, as always, we really appreciate you all watching, whether you're live here today or if you're watching the replay. Maybe you were at work when we're live here today. Whatever it is, I really appreciate it. We're going to break down all 18 holes of the Renaissance Club here shortly, which we do each and every week. I'll highlight some of the tough holes and some of the scoreable, those birdie holes to make your sweat a little bit easier each week. It'll also give you an insight of what will be important from a stat perspective, I guess you can say. But I like it more just from the sweat perspective. I know, okay, my guy's on this long par four. If he gets par, I'm really not going to be too upset about it. Whereas you get to those shorter par fives, I guess, or some of the par fives at the John Deere last week. I think I had a guy in Showdown that scored bogey on one of those par fives. So that was very irritating, I guess you can say. So it can go both ways, of course. But that's been one of my favorite parts about breaking down all 18 holes of these courses is to, again, just help me with my sweat. So I know, where should my guys be scoring? Where should they, hopefully be getting par or saving par sometimes. But yeah, that's what we do on this, this stream if this is your first time. So let's go ahead and break down the course. This is the 50th edition of the Scottish Open. I guess we'll talk about the event here first. The PGA Tour announced last year that the Scottish Open would be an official event on the tour schedule here in 2022. This field is going to be made up of 75 PGA Tour players, 75 DP World Tour players, which is the Euro Tour, 3 KPGA players, and then 3 sponsor exemptions, of course. Genesis will take over the sponsorship rights for this event this year. It used to be Aberdeen, was the previous event sponsor for the last decade or so, I believe. This tournament takes place at the Renaissance Club, though, which is located in Scotland, of course, between North Berwick and Muirfield, which are 2 historic links-style courses. Of course, we're on links golf this week. This event has been taking place at this course for the last 3 years, so this will be the 4th year. So we do have some course history that we can look at a little bit. Of course, you can find that in my event and course preview article on Fantasy Points, Again, that is free each week. A little bit of tournament history. Minwoo Lee won last year. He was victorious at the Renaissance Club. He beat out Matt Fitzpatrick and Thomas Dietrich in a one-hole playoff. Minwoo fired a bogey-free 64. I think he was only like 5 under par heading into the weekend, but he was just lights out on Saturday and Sunday. Again, he shot a bogey-free 64 in the final round. He had 6 birdies in a row in the front 9 and then had 1 on the back 9 to really seal the deal there, or at least get him into that playoff, I guess you could say. This was Minwoo, his first Rolex Series victory and his second win on the Euro Tour. He won the Honda Vic Open in 2020. So definitely was one of the first times that I had heard of Minwoo. I don't really follow the Euro Tour too much, but he's been kind of a staple name. At least in majors recently, you can always see him in that $6,000 to $7,000 range. So last 5 winners of this event include Minwoo Lee. There we go. 18 under par. In 2020, Aaron Rai won at 11 under par. That event was played in October due to the pandemic. 2019, Bernd Wiesenberger won at 22 under par. And then 2018, 2017, those were won by Brandon Stone and Rafa Cabrera Bello, 20 under and 13 under. But those were played at 2 different golf courses. So Can't really take too much from those 2 years, though. But again, the last 3 years, they have been 18 under par, 11 under par, and 22 under par. A couple of fun facts about these last 5 years. Four of the last five tournaments have ended in a playoff, giving this event some fun drama, of course, in the final round. I think they tee off like at 2:30 in the morning, Eastern time. I'll have to double check that. So, we'll watch the final round Sunday morning, probably at, what, 8, 9 o'clock. They might be really getting into that back nine. I don't really know for sure. But so yeah, that's, and, kind of a fun thing about this too is it always ends in a playoff, at least for the last 5 years. And it's a great thing to kind of wake up to on Sunday, especially if you're in contention. I can only imagine what it's like to hold on to the Millie Maker, a big top prize at GPP, and have to sleep on that, wake up Sunday morning. I can only imagine what time I would wake up. But it's worth noting that in 2020, though, again, it was played in October. 2020 also had a lot of bad weather. I think one of the rounds was really tough. I can talk about that in a little bit, but again, due to the pandemic, they played that in October, so that's why the weather was probably a little bit different. Again, the course conditions played much tougher. It was 11 under par compared to Min Woo's victory at 18 under last year. So yeah, that is some tournament history. I think that's all I got for an event preview tournament history. As far as the course goes, again, it is the Renaissance Club. This course was designed by Tom Doak in 2008. He redesigned Memorial Park, which takes place, where I guess where the Houston Open takes place, excuse me, as well as St. George's Golf Course that we saw at the Canadian Open not too long ago. But both of those courses will be much different than the Renaissance Club, of course. Again, this is played in Europe. It's going to be much more of a links-style golf course. I know St. George's had a lot of trees. It's been a while since we've had the Houston Open, but obviously, again, much different golf course than those two. So I'm not really looking at those two a whole lot. It is a par 71 course. It has a really unique scorecard. As a whole, the course is going to measure 7,300 yards long. Golfers are going to see 5 par 3s, 9 par 4s, and 4 par 5s, which is a little bit different. Normally on these par 71s, right, we'll see 4 par 3s and then 3 par 5s. Given that what my math says that is 11 par 4s, right? But we take away 2 of those par 4s and give 1 to the par 3 into the par 5 here. So a little bit, again, a unique scorecard here. 3 of the par 3s measure over 200 yards long. The other 2 come in at 147 and 161 yards. 5 of the par 4s measure 440 to 500 yards long, and I'll talk about that in the hole-by-hole breakdown here in a second. Those will be the most difficult holes on the course. Just looking at each of the last 3 years, they typically are, again, the toughest holes that golfers will see. 1 of the par 4s, the 5th hole, just measures 338 yards, and that'll be drivable for most golfers. It's not really, a huge eagle hole, but definitely a scoreable hole. And this isn't really, the most difficult golf course either, right? We're still getting up towards 20 under par. So, kind of a birdie fest, just not really in the Midwest, right? So the par 5s all measure 560 to 600 yards long, and they'll provide solid scoring opportunities for golfers, but they are, again, on the longer side. So I do think we can factor in driving distance and just long iron play in general this week, because I do think that will be an advantage for those longer hitters. Again, over the last 3 years, this score has been 18 under par, 11 under par, and 22 under par. The cut line for those 3 years in respective years has been -2, even, and -4. So, expect it to be in that range, I would assume, this week. The high range in scoring, again, can be attributed to the coastal winds that blow from the North Sea. That's kind of one of the main defenses of this course. I said in my course article that trees are non-existent. I have to fully confess, I kind of made a mistake there. It's not like, a lot of the courses that we've been seeing recently, all those tree-lined fairways. There are trees on this course, but a lot of the holes have little to zero trees. A lot of the holes too have trees that are kind of, pretty far away from the fairway. So I don't think they're going to be a huge factor, but I got to admit when I was wrong there. Again, there are trees on this course. I just don't think, it'll be as much of an impact as some of the other courses we've been seeing as of late. Players who miss the short grass off the tee will be met with heavy, rough grass. I believe it is all fescue throughout the course. I'll have to double check on that. We don't have a sheet, I guess, with all the facts this week. So I didn't have any official data to go off of, but I have heard again that the greens are fescue, which can be pretty slow compared to the bent grass that we've been seeing over the last month or so. So just kind of a little bit of a breakdown of this course here. So again, it was designed by Tom Doak in 2008, par 71, a little under 7,300 yards, and the greens are fescue. Let's break down these holes here. Start with hole 1, of course. So we're getting this from the European Tour website. This is from a course breakdown from last year. So, however, all the stats that I have are from last year as well. So they are, the most recent year of stats here. So it does change a little bit from year to year, especially the most difficult holes. But typically, the toughest holes all rank inside the top 5 year to year basis here. Okay, so starting on hole 1, golfers start the front 9 with a par 4. This one measures 464 yards long. This ranks right in the middle when it comes to difficulty. It ranks 8th overall. The hole played slightly over par last year, 4.04 strokes for a par 4. There were 88 bogeys to just 73 birdies. There are 4 fairway bunkers and 4 greenside bunkers to add to the difficulty of this hole. They pushed this hole back 31 yards last year and gave it a slightly different angle to the fairway too. So probably a par hole, right? 73 birdies to 88 bogeys, but there was 313 pars last year. So look for your guys to start off with a 4 on that opening hole. Obviously, if you can get a birdie, that's a great start. Moving on to the second hole, the par 4 second hole at the Renaissance Club played as the toughest last year, as golfers averaged 0.29 strokes above par, and they saw birdies at just a 7% rate, which is pretty dang low for a lot of these holes. The 493-yard hole features a fairway that is 150 yards away from the reconstructed tee box, and it's surrounded by heavy rough as well. The sheer distance of this hole makes, is probably one of the main defenses, as well as the wind, if it can pick up, of course. But, 7 bunkers that border, or there's 7 bunkers that border the fairway and the green. Golfers walked away with bogey or worse 32% of the time last year. There were 150 bogeys on this hole, which was the most out of any of the holes on the course. So 150 bogeys to just 33 birdies. There was 10 double bogeys. So these first 2 holes are relatively tough. I'll talk about the back 9 here in a second, but I think they still split it up to where guys, start on either hole 1 or hole 10. I haven't looked at tee times yet. I know in the Open Championship, I believe they always start on hole 1 and just kind of, go through it. But yeah, so if guys are starting on the front 9, going to be a little bit more difficult. Of course, again, the second hole is the most difficult hole. I think, let me just scroll down quick. The 10th hole is the 14th easiest, or 14th in difficulty, excuse me. So it's pretty easy. A little bit different start of the back 9 compared to the front. Moving on to the third hole. So we finally get a scoreable or pretty easy hole here on hole 3. This is the 17th ranked in difficulty, so second easiest hole on the course. The third hole is a long par 5 that measures 600 yards on the dot, which is pretty long, but it's a dogleg right that is protected by trees on the right side of the fairway. The fairway gets narrow as you get closer to the green, just to kind of add a defense to layup shots. There were only 2 eagles scored on this hole last year, though. However, 204 birdies to just 29 bogeys. So another one of those holes that'll be very tilting if, of course, one of your golfers scores a bogey on this. They always say, right, if you score a bogey on this hole, and it's true, the average last year was 4.63 strokes. If you score a 6 on the par 5, you really are giving up, close to a stroke and a half to the field. So really need your guys to score on these par 5s. I would definitely add in some par 5 scoring or efficiency, I guess you can say, into your models this week. So yeah, that's all I really got to say. Very scoreable hole. Moving on to the fourth hole. So the fourth hole is a par 4 measuring 422 yards long, so relatively shorter compared to the other par 4s. The hole ranks 10th in difficulty. It saw 85 birdies last year to just 60 bogeys. The fairway on this hole is relatively narrow, and the green is slightly elevated to make the hole a bit tougher than expected, even though it is kind of shorter, right? There used to be a tree on the left side of the green that was removed last year or 2 years ago, I believe. That kind of just made things a little bit annoying when you were hitting that approach shot. So, fourth hole, again, 10th in difficulty, kind of right in the middle there, 85 birdies, 260 bogeys. Scoreable hole, you could probably say, I guess. Moving on to the fifth hole, it is the 16th in difficulty. So it is a relatively easy one. Again, this is the drivable par four. It measures just 338 yards long. There were 5 eagles on this hole last year, so it is, doable, right? But there were 187 birdies and just 35 bogeys. So again, another one that you got to walk away with a par or better, of course. The pin placement on this hole will be key, as short approach shots can be kind of difficult depending on the lie. 2 bunkers on this hole. There's one in the fairway and one on the right front side of the green. Moving on to the sixth hole. Sixth hole is a short par 3 that measures 14 yards long. The hole ranked 12th in difficulty last year. There were 79 birdies to just 40 bogeys. There's 4 bunkers that surround the green that have been reconstructed to play a little bit tougher. These bunkers are small, but they're known as pot bunkers. I had to do a little bit of research on this because I'm no, you know, nerd when it comes to this stuff. I guess I'm always kind of trying to learn about this stuff. Pot bunker is a small but very deep bunker. It's got some steep faces as well. They're most commonly found on these links type of golf courses, of course, over on in Europe, right? Again, a lot of the times they're very small, very deep. And I know Matt was talking about it too in his show. You cannot be hitting these bunkers, especially in the fairway, because you're going to have to be chipping out and just hitting, 50 to 100, sand shots, just kind of laying up towards the green. So you got to avoid these bunkers. I think, that is probably one of the keys this week is avoiding these pot bunkers. And you'll see them all throughout the course too. So anytime I talk about a bunker being in a certain spot, it's probably going to be one of these, small but deep bunkers. Okay, seventh hole. It is another scoreable par 5. All of these par 5s are scoreable, and you've got to walk away with birdies on these holes. This one measures 561 yards long. There are a lot of fairway bunkers on this hole that will be really important to avoid. The hole is pretty straightforward, though. There's 6 fairway bunkers and 4 greenside bunkers, though, so quite a few bunkers on this hole compared to the other ones. Golfers averaged 4.67 strokes on the par 5 last year, with 193 birdies to just 27 bogeys. There were 4 eagles, so another eagleable hole, but I'm not really looking too much at eagles gain this week too much. Definitely more of a birdie or better, but again, we're kind of flipping back and forth between birdie or better and bogey avoidance, right? We're kind of getting into the birdie or better courses, at least that swing of the PGA Tour schedule. Moving on to the 8th hole. It is the 5th most difficult hole. It sits just under 450 yards. However, again, is pretty difficult. There were 88 bogeys last year to just 45 birdies. The hole has a very tight landing area and a fairway that's split in half by a bunker right in the center of the fairway. You can kind of see it in that picture there. Golfers will likely have a blind approach shot to an elevated green, again, giving this a pretty difficult look into the green, I guess you could say. It averaged 4.12 strokes for the par 4. Again, a relatively difficult hole. There were 8 double bogeys on this hole last year. So kind of a tough way to end the back 9 because the 9th hole ranked 4th in difficulty last year. It is a long par 3 that measures 218 yards long. The hole is the 4th toughest on the course due to a very tricky green that has runoffs on the right and to the back of the green. There's 4 greenside bunkers to add to the difficulty of this long par 3. There was 102 bogeys last year to just 42 birdies. So again, pretty tough way to end the back 9. We have the 4th and 5th most difficult holes on the course. But I did mention it earlier, the 10th hole ranks 14th in difficulty, so it is the 5th easiest hole on the course. Golfers will start the back 9 here with the par 5. It measures 494 yards long. So again, all of these par 5s are relatively long, so I do think distance is going to have an impact this week and just proximity with the long irons, right? All of these par fours again measure 560 to 600 yards long. So I do think again those long hitters will have an advantage. There were 4 eagles on this hole last year, 155 birdies, and only 44 bogeys. So again, you cannot be scoring a 6 on these par fives. You are really going to be giving up strokes to the field. It is reachable in 2 for longer hitters. However, there is a mound kind of right to the front of the green that makes those approach shots kind of difficult. It's a little more difficult to just run it up there onto the green. So I'll be on the lookout for that this week. All right, the 11th hole was third in difficulty last year. You could probably guess the distance of this hole. It is another long par 4, this one measuring 475 yards long. Again, all 3, actually 4 of the most difficult holes on this course, I believe, are long par 4s. So that's where I think, guys are going to separate themselves. A lot of guys are going to be scoring birdie, on those par 5s. The par 3s tend to be, just par saves, right? I do think a lot of these greens are relatively big. I'll talk about that here in a second, actually. So I don't think the par 3s are going to be too difficult, but again, these long par 4s are where the separation will be, of course. So, this hole has 2 different fairways that are divided by 3 bunkers and long rough. There's a few holes on this course that have those 2 different fairways that are again separated by a collection of bunkers. As with the other long par 4s, the difficulty of this hole increases as the tees are pushed back. Of course, again, this is 475, but it can fluctuate depending on the tee box. Let's see here. There's 48 birdies last year to 109 bogeys. So, again, definitely one where you want to save par here. Similar to the 8th hole, the fairway, again, is split into 2 parts, but it has a collection of bunkers and long fescue rough. And you'll see that fescue that really surrounds the fairways. I do think these fairways are relatively, wide, especially compared to a lot of those tougher courses we've seen in the States recently. But, if you miss those fairways, you're really going to be in trouble with long rough, bunkers potentially as well. So I definitely want to find the short grass here. 12th hole is a long par 3. It ranked 7th in difficulty last year. There were 50 birdies to just 65 bogeys. It played 0.04 strokes above par. The hole has really beautiful views of the coast and features a 2-tiered green, though, with the right side higher than the left. This kind of stretch of holes from, I think I had it down like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You can really see some great views of the coast of what I believe is the North Sea. Had to do a little bit of geography research to find what coast is blowing off there, right? But really, I think we'll see some really nice views, especially in the middle of these 18 holes. So moving on to the 13th hole, it ranked 11th in difficulty last year. It's a par 4. This one measures 418 yards long. So again, the longer that these par 4s go up, or the more distance that you add to them, obviously the difficulty tends to increase as well. The hole features a dogleg left with a fairway that gets more narrow towards the green. The par 4 averaged 3.93 strokes last year, 90 birdies to just 45 bogeys. So I think that's a scoreable hole. Definitely look for your guys to get a birdie on. Really, you could score birdie on 3 of the opening 4 holes here on this back 9. And you could probably say this next one as well. The 14th hole, it is 13th in difficulty. The 14th hole is a short par 3 that provides a solid scoring opportunity for golfers. There were only 19 bogeys on this hole last year to 95 birdies. So, only 19 bogeys. That's pretty low, I'd say. What does that mean, though, on a par 3? In my opinion, it means that this green is relatively large because a lot of these guys will probably be hitting the green, right? If only 19 bogeys, I can't imagine too many guys are going to be missing this large surface, but I do think 3-putt avoidance can be looked at a little bit this week as well, because some of these greens seem much larger than the the smaller ones that we've seen recently. The hole features a stone wall though to the back right, and it has a contouring green as well, just to give it some uniqueness. 15th hole, it ranked 2nd in difficulty last year. Golfers scored bogey or worse 24% of the time, and the lengthy hole played 0.2 strokes above par. The hole is another long par 4. This one measures 488 yards long, and it also has an elevated tee box to maybe make that a little bit easier. There is a collection of bunkers on the right side of the fairway and long rough if you miss the short grass, as with all the holes. The three toughest holes on this course, again, were long par 4s, 475 to 503 yards, I believe, 31 birdies to 103 bogeys. This hole also had the most double bogeys, which was 12. So another pretty difficult hole here on the 15th. However, luckily, golfers will see the easiest hole on the course with the 16th hole. This is a par 5. It measures 576 yards long, has the most birdies and eagles on the course last year. There were 19 eagles to 247 birdies and just 13 bogeys. So please hope that one of your golfers are not one of those 13 bogeys if it happens once again this year. The ideal drive here is down the left side of the fairway, but there are some pot bunkers that you must avoid on that left side in the rough. So that's kind of the ideal strategy. But I'm sure, as with most holes, there are multiple options to do well on this one. 19 eagles, it is a reachable hole in two for a lot of these guys. That'd be definitely one of the holes that you want to look for a birdie, of course. 247 birdies to just 13 bogeys last year. 17th hole, it ranks 9th in difficulty. It is a par 3. This one measures a little over 200 yards. It ranked 9th in difficulty last year with 75 birdies to 64 bogeys. The green is wide and is two-tiered. Once again, a pretty large green. A lot of these two-tiered greens typically are pretty large anyways. There is a relatively large pot bunker to the front left side of the green. This one is probably one of the more, larger ones on the course. So just, again, a unique part of this hole. And to the 18th hole, it is a par 4. Again, the last hole on the course. It was the most difficult hole in 2019. However, it ranked 6th in difficulty last year. But you could probably guess how long this hole is. Again, it's a par 4. This one measures 483 yards long. So, 6th in difficulty last year. I would assume we could see it, pretty close to the top this year. Might have been an outlier last year. Who knows? But it was the most difficult, in 2019. To make things worse, this hole plays into the wind, and it has two remodeled greenside bunkers on the right side of the green. And again, they are those pot bunkers. Really, small but deep. Really tough to chip out of. You might have to even chip out of a different angle than where you want to obviously hit it right. So I think that's one of the keys to success this week is avoiding these bunkers. All right, that is all 18 holes here. We will break down some of the field here in a second. Let me take a drink quick. If you have any questions, you can throw them in the YouTube chat, of course. And let's break down some of this field really quick. I'm not going to talk too much about bets and DFS a whole lot, just because we have some really great content out there that will, kind of cover my bases for me on that side of things. But I do like kind of giving my thoughts on the field, a week in, week out basis, of course. Just curious on, I haven't looked at salaries a whole lot, just because just more looking at the course, I guess, and what I want to look at from a stat perspective. But does look like the salaries are relatively good this week. We do have a really strong field, of course, right? 14 of the top 15 players in the official world golf rankings are all in the field this week. Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, right? They also have some really great European Tour players that have been playing well as of recently. Ryan Fox will be the key name that you'll hear. Adrian Meronk won last week. I think it was 20 under par as well. So kind of a similar scoring setup. Robert McIntyre, right? What are some other guys here? I think Jordan Smith is another name that you'll probably hear about this week. So, there's 75 Euro players here. So it's not like it's only the PGA guys, right? I do expect a lot of those Euro players to be overlooked a little bit, even though they are playing on their part of the country, right? So that's all I really got to say about the field, I guess. We have been playing this place for 3 years. Matt Fitzpatrick was runner up last year in a playoff. He also finished T14 and T42 in the previous 2 years here. Ian Poulter, which I know there was a story last year or yesterday. I think that he's in the field. I don't really know how that's going to work since they already have the field set. I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit, but apparently Ian Poulter is in the field, or he, went to court yesterday to challenge that. If he is in the field, he does have one of the best course history, out of all these players here. He's finished fourth, sixth, and 14th in this event. Obviously, he's just putting lights out on this course. Justin Thomas, he's made 2 out of 2 cuts here. He's finished top 10 in both of those 2 starts, so pretty solid option to look at. He's coming off of that PGA Championship win, just a couple months ago. A couple other course history options that I like. Tyrrell Hatton, he's made 2 cuts here. Lucas Herbert, he's finished T4 and T4 on the last 2 years. He also made the cut in his 3rd start. Minwoo Lee, right? He won last year and he was T30 in his other start too. So I do have an essential question that I did talk about this week. I really think this is the only thing that is going to impact, really everything. I think guys are locked in, ready to compete for the major next week. I don't think we really have to worry about that a whole lot. That tends to be something that I consider when we get to an event that, again, comes before a major. But I think weather is really the main thing that we have to look at this week. It doesn't look like it's going to be too treacherous as of right now, but these European climates, I think they can change a little bit more often than what I'm looking at here in Nebraska. I guess Nebraska changes pretty often, but again, we got to look at that, especially tomorrow night. I'm starting to become a huge wave advantage player, if there is a wave advantage, just because I'm kind of indecisive sometimes. So it helps me make those decisions on if I'm really close on 2 different guys there. But yeah, I do think we have to look at weather quite a bit. In 2020, the 3rd round was really, really windy. Only 17 golfers shot under par due to the high winds there. Lucas Herbert shot a 79 in round 3 of 2020, and he still managed to finish 4th place. So just shows how many guys were shooting really high that day. As far as picks go this week, I wrote up Cam Smith and Max Homa in my course and event article on Fantasy Points. Again, you can find that for free on the new Fantasy Points PGA page. It looks really fresh. I really invite you all to check that out when you have some time here today. But yeah, Cameron Smith, do like him quite a bit just because it just seems like an ideal course fit for him. A place that has relatively wide open fairways, a place that is going to emphasize putting, even though his putting has kind of dropped a little bit as of late, especially since his PGA Championship, his Players Championship win way back in March. But I still like Cam Smith. It's been a while for him too, so he's definitely due. He ranks first in approach, first in birdie or better percentage too. So just some key stats that I'm looking at this week, of course. And he's, right at the top of the field of both of those. So do like Cam Smith this week. And then Max Homa's just been playing really well. He's finished inside the top 20 in half of his events this year. He ranks 2nd in strokes gained approach, 6th in strokes gained tee to green, 9th in strokes gained par 5s. He's gained strokes putting in 4 of his last 5 events. So Mac's been playing really, really well. He also finished, I think, 30th last year at the Open Championship. So it's not like he's never played overseas before, right? He just has been playing well in really all aspects of his game too. It's not just off the tee, for example, like it may have been in the past. So do like me some Max Homa this week. I think he's only $8,000 on DraftKings. My favorite range for DFS this week is that Victor Hovland to Cameron Smith range. Even you can go up a little bit to Sam Burns. Really like Victor Hovland this week. Cam Smith, Hideki Matsuyama's only 9K. Jordan Spieth's only 8.9. So really like those guys. You get a great, salary discount from them as well. It's going to be hard to not go to one of, Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Justin Thomas. So maybe if you can mix and match those guys in together and then find a couple of value pieces down below, I think that's probably the ideal strategy. Last year's champion, Minwoo is only $7,300. Lucas Herbert, 6,500. Adrian Moronk, like I said, he won last week on another European course, right? He is 7,700. There's pretty solid options there in that 7K range, but I will let you all watch Matt's show for the DFS side of this. And of course, if you want to get some betting picks, you should watch Dom and Sam's show tonight. And then Matt and Dom have their final points show tomorrow, where they kind of talk about everything, break down really everything that you need to know. And I do think weather will be important too, so make sure that you're looking at that before lock on Thursday morning. Don't forget it's a different lock time this week as well. So that is all I got for y'all this week. If you have anything, you can of course reach out to me on or at Twitter, or on Twitter at Huntman10, of course, or of course on Fantasy Points. All of my content will be on Fantasy Points or in the Fantasy Points Discord. You can reach out to me there as well. Otherwise, hope you all had a great 4th of July weekend. Hope you all have a great Tuesday as well. Thanks for taking some time to watch this show. Of course, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to do so. And good luck this week. I hope you all make some money. I appreciate you watching. Thanks.